Hi friends, welcome to English Study Point. Today in this video lecture, I am going to discuss another part of Macflegno by John Dryden, and this video is part number 3. So here I am starting with the lines, close to the walls which where Augusta bind. So this line locates the setting near the walls of London, often referred to as where Augusta. So this introduces the geographical aspect of the poem, hinting at the city's historical importance. The fair Augusta, much to fears inclined. So Dryden emphasizes the city's vulnerability and contemporary anxieties, suggesting that Augusta means London is a place where fear and uncertainty hover. An ancient fabric raised inform the site. So the term ancient fabric refers to a historical structure raised to inform the site, indicates that this structure was built to be a lookout or to serve a significant visual purpose, hinting at its former glory. There stood of yore and Barbican it height. So this line uses of yore to express that the tower once stood proudly. Barbican refers to a type of fortification, suggesting it had a military purpose. A watchtower once, but now so fate ordains. So Dryden reflects on the tower's former role as a watchtower, which speaks to its importance in guarding the city, but also acknowledges a sense of inevitability in the decline of its significance. Of all the pile, an empty name remains. So the empty name symbolizes decay and loss. Although the tower once held power, now it is merely a memory, emphasizing the transient nature of pride and structure. From its old ruins, brothel houses rise. So this poignant contrast shows the degradation of the area. The ruins now give way to brothels, indicating a moral decline and the rise of vice in place of honor. Scenes of lewd loves and of polluted joys. So the language here highlights the immoral activities taking place. Polluted joys suggest the base and unworthy pleasures that transpire in the brothels, where their vast courts the mother's trumpets keep. So mother's trumpets refers to the matriarchs of this immoral society. This phrase also conveys the idea of a hierarchy within the brothel system, and undisturbed by watch in silence sleep. So this line conveys a sense of peaceful oblivion to the surrounding decay and indicates a lack of oversight or care, suggesting that these immoral activities occur without fear of retribution. Near these, a nursery erects its head. So in stark contrast to the brothel houses, the nursery introduces the idea of new beginnings. This implies the potential for regeneration, but in a tainted environment, where queens are formed and future heroes bred. So Dryden implies that in this nursery noble figures may arise. However, there is irony as it is juxtaposed with the previous moral decay, raising questions about the future of such leaders, where unfledged actors learn to laugh and cry. So the unfledged actors symbolize unformed talents in the literary and theatrical world. They are learning the emotional range necessary for performance, hinting at Dryden's critique of those who aspire to greatness without genuine talent, where infant punks their tender voices try. So this line continues the imagery of youth corruption. Infant punks implies a training ground for those who will indulge in vice, thus criticizing the next generation's moral upbringing. And little Maximins, the gods defy. So little Maximins references aspiring characters who exhibit arrogance or hubris akin to larger than life figures. This can signify a critique of pretentious or talentless figures in literature or society who believe themselves to be above the gods, drawing a parallel with figures in British history or literature. So here in this excerpt, we see that Dryden's satirical style, as he blends various kinds of themes like decay, morality, and the partial nature of aspirants in a corrupted landscape, critiquing the literary and societal milieu of his time. Now, here in this stanza, we see Great Fletcher never treads in buskins here. So, Fletcher refers to John Fletcher, a notable playwright. Buskins are high heeled shoes typically worn by actors in tragedies. So, the line suggests that great dramatists do not engage in the frivolity of this context, nor greater Johnson dares in socks appear. So Johnson refers to Ben Jonson, another esteemed playwright. Socks symbolize comedic roles. This line underscores that only those of lesser talent would degrade themselves to perform in such a manner. But gentle Simkin just reception finds. Simkin is likely a satire of Shadwell, characterized as gentle, perhaps implying that he is soft or lacking in sharpness. He receives a place here, indicating he belongs amongst lesser talents amidst this monument of vanished minds. So, the monument refers to the decayed literary culture and forgotten writers. It signifies that the lost intellects of the past reside here, emphasizing the inferiority of current figures in comparison. Pure clinches the suburban muse efforts. So, clinches means clever or witty remarks. The suburban muse suggests that talent is found outside the center of literary excellence, belittling local poets who lack depth, and Panton waging harmless war with words. So Panton refers to a lesser talent, perhaps a poet fighting with words. Dryden hints at their word play being ineffectual and insignificant, portraying a lack of real strength or impact. Here, Flecknoe is a place to fame well known. So, Flecknoe references Richard Flecknoe, an ill regarded poet. This line mocks the idea that he has a position of regard among literary circles, ambitiously designed his Shadwell's throne. Flecknoe aims to establish Shadwell's dominance in dullness. This establishes Shadwell as the ultimate purveyor of mediocrity in the world of writing. For ancient Dekker prophesied long since. So Dekker likely refers to Thomas Dekker, a historical playwright. The prophecy hints at the inevitability of Shadwell being crowned as a ruler of dullness. So that in this pile should reign a mighty prince. So the pile refers to Flecknoe's work or influence. A mighty prince speaks to a false sense of grandeur, portraying Shadwell as a ruler despite his lack of real talent. Born for a scourge of wit and flail of sense. So Shadwell is characterized as a force against wit and intelligence. A scourge implies he punishes real talent, while the flail suggests his crude approach to logic. To whom true dullness should some psyches owe? Psyches imply figures in literature who lack depth or insight, showing their allegiance to Shadwell's dullness. But worlds of misers from his pen should flow. So the world of misers suggests that Shadwell's works would produce greedy or miserable characters, reinforcing the banality of his writing. Humorists and hypocrites it should produce. So here we see this line refers to Shadwell's tendency to create insincere characters, amplifying the poem's critique of his literary style. Whole Raymond families and tribes of Bruce. So Raymond and Bruce refers to families of writers or characters from Shadwell's work, implying they are part of his tedious legacy. Mac Flecknoe here uses, means this poem here, Dryden uses satire to critique Thomas Shadwell's lack of talent, contrasting it with the greatness of other playwrights while also lamenting the state of contemporary literature. The poem is a mix of mock heroic elements and biting commentary, revealing Dryden's disdain for uninspired writing. Now, here with another stanza, we find now Empress Fame had published the renown. So, this line introduces the idea of fame as a powerful entity, suggesting that she has spread the news of Shadwell's crowning widely, of Shadwell's coronation through the town. So, the focus shifts to Shadwell, a contemporary of Dryden, being crowned as a poet, indicating a parody of royal ceremonies elevated to an absurd level. Roused by report of fame, the nations meet. So, people from different places, driven by fame, gather to witness this event, symbolizing the draw of reputation and public spectacle. From near Bun Hill and distant Watling Street. So, this location suggests a range of visitors, indicating the widespread impact of the event. Bun Hill is a burial ground, perhaps referencing the dead poets who are now reviving to witness. Now, here in this line, we see no Persian carpet spread the imperial way. The absence of luxurious carpets implies a lack of true nobility or grandeur in this partial coronation, contrasting the ceremonial opulence usually associated with royalty, but scattered limbs of mangled poets lay. So, this evokes a grotesque image, suggesting that the poets have been metaphorically destroyed by Shadwell's mediocrity, littering the scene, and it critiques the state of poetry and the fate of its true artists. From dusty shops, neglected authors come. So, the neglected writers who are forgotten and ignored in society are depicted as rallying to this event, emphasizing the decline of literary merit. Martyrs of pies and relics of the bum. So, this line comically refers to struggles of authors, suggesting they are sacrificed for trivial pursuits like trivial literature or low humor, playing into Shadwell's style, which Dryden views as inferior. Much Haywood, Shirley, Ogley, there lay. So, mentioning these authors indicates the gathering of various literary figures, some of whom were once esteemed writers. Their presence highlights a blend of respect and disdain in Dryden's view, but loads of Shadwell almost chalked the way. So, this implies that the sheer volume of Shadwell's works overwhelms the event, dismissing his talents and suggesting he is a burden to the arts. Built stationers for yeomen stood prepared. So, this line indicates that booksellers and publishers are set for financial gain from Shadwell's work, hinting at commercialism over quality in poetry. And Herringman was captain of the guard. So, Herringman, a real life publisher known for his questionable choices, being designated as captain of the guard, underscores the ridicule of the poetic community, reinforcing the satirical tone. The hoary prince in Majesty appeared, referring to Shadwell's as hoary prince plays on his age as well as his pretensions to greatness, mockingly elevating him in a manner that is truly ironic. High on a throne of his own labors reared, Shadwell is metaphorically seated on a throne built from his own works, showing the absurdity of his elevation as it is based on a foundation of mediocrity. At his right hand, our young Ascanius sat. So, the mention of young Ascanius in this context refers to a youthful successor or a promising poet, possibly conveying the idea that Shadwell is passing on his questionable legacy. Rome's other hope and pillar of the state. So, this line satirically suggests that, like Ascanius was to Rome, Shadwell's followers or works might be seen as bearers of poetic hope, although with clear skepticism from Dryden. So, this passage is a scathing satire on the literary politics of Dryden's time, particularly critiquing the mediocrity represented by Shadwell and the poor state of poetry. It employs vivid imagery, irony, and humor, poking fun at the pomp of literary pretensions. Now, heading to another stanza, we find his brows thick fogs instead of glory's grace. So, this line suggests that Shadwell's thoughts are clouded, means thick fogs lacking brilliance or glory. It enforces a negative image of Shadwell's intellect and lambent dullness played around his face. Lambent refers to a flickering light which suggests that Shadwell's dullness is evident, hinting that it's almost a lifelong characteristic. It sets Shadwell up as a figure of banality, as Hannibal did to the altars come. So, this reference alludes to Hannibal's vow against Rome, linking Shadwell to a historical figure known for commitment, but in Shadwell's case, it's a commitment to dullness. Now here, sworn by his sire, a mortal foe to Rome. Similar to Hannibal's oath, it implies that Shadwell has inherited his legacy, in this case the mantle of dullness which Dryden presents as a curse. So Shadwell swore not should his vow be vain. So Dryden declares that Shadwell has pledged to uphold this dullness. Dryden is mocking the seriousness of such a vow that he till death true dullness would maintain. So Shadwell is committed to being uninspired and uninspiring until death. This is both an absurd ambition and an indictment of his artistic output and in his father's right and realm's defense. So, this could imply that Shadwell believes he is protecting the legacy of dullness as a form of art akin to a realm. He sees himself as a defender, never to have peace with wit nor truce with sense. So Shadwell refuses to associate with cleverness or reason. It characterizes his work and ethos as one of ignorance and anti-intellectualism. Now here, the king himself, the sacred unction made. So this employs royal imagery suggesting a ceremony where Shadwell is metaphorically crowned in the realm of dullness, as king by office and as priest by trade. Shadwell is not only a ruler in his domain but also an enforcer of the dullness that characterizes his artistic craft, priest of dullness, in his sinister hand instead of ball. So sinister refers to the left hand, which is associated with negative qualities. Instead of an orb, a symbol of power, he wields something mundane. He placed a mighty mug of potent ale. So the mug of ale humorously symbolizes Shadwell's preferment of drunkenness over intellectual or moral engagement. It reinforces theme of mediocrity. Love's kingdom to his right he did convey. So Dryden contrasts drunkenness with romance. Shadwell's creative realm is mismanaged as he appears to lack the nobility to rule over love as well. At once, his capture and his rule of sway. So the ale serves as both scepter and realm. It indicates that his reign is based on indulgence and mindlessness rather than intellect, whose righteous lore the prince had practiced young. This line hints at Shadwell's upbringing and influences, alluding to how he was trained in the arts of dullness from a young age, reinforcing the idea that talent is a product of conditioning and from whose alloyance recorded psyche sprung. So, psyche associated with the soul seems to contrast with Shadwell's lack of depth, mocking the notion that he could produce profound work. His temples last with poppies were overspread. So poppies symbolize sleep, death and forgetfulness. Shadwell is portrayed as having succumbed to mediocrity, suggesting he is oblivious or uninspired. That nodding seemed to consecrate his head. So the nodding poppies imply a state of stupor or lethargy, further emphasizing Shadwell's foolishness and dullness, just at that point of time, if fame not lie. So Dryden here introduces a hint of doubt and irony if the legend about Shadwell is true, suggesting a disconnect between reality and reputation. Now here at last we see on his left hand 12 reverend owls did fly. So owl symbols of wisdom are ironically misplaced here, implying Shadwell's audience or companions are wise yet surrounding a figure who embodies dullness. So Dryden uses rich imagery, satire and historical references to criticize Shadwell's lack of talent while associating him with darkness, drunkenness, and ignorance. The poem serves as a critique of 17th century literary mediocrity and those who uphold it. Now here we see, so Romulus, thus sung by Tibur's Brook, so refers to Romulus, the legendary founder of Rome, and sets a grand historical tone. The Tiber River symbolizes power and empire. Presage of sway from twice six vultures took suggests that Romulus received omens of his future rule from 12 vultures, indicating a divine endorsement of his reign. The admiring throng loud acclamations make. So the crowd's admiration reflects the public's support for Romulus, creating a contrast with the subject of Dryden's satire Shadwell and omens of his future empire take. So reinforces that the crowd interprets these signs as prophecies of greatness and power. The sire then shook the honors of his head. So the sire refers to a father figure, likely referencing a god or powerful leader. Shaking his head signifies acknowledgement or approval, and from his brows depths of oblivion shed. So implies a release of knowledge or memory, suggesting that divine insight is being shared or bestowed upon Romulus. Full on the filial dullness, long he stood. So the filial dullness could represent Shadwell, contrasting him with the greatness of Romulus. Long he stood implies contemplation. Repelling from his breast the raging god suggests a struggle against destructive forces, possibly his own passions or pride, hinting at a conflict within the character. At length burst out in this prophetic mood, indicates a change where the character now speaks with the authority of prophecy, signaling a moment of revelation or insight. Heavens bless my son, from Ireland let him reign. So moves the focus to Shadwell, mentioning Ireland to evoke his origins or associations, suggesting limited reign compared to Romulus. Too far Barbados on the western main, so exaggerates Chauvel's reign, extending it to a distant lands, showcasing Dryden's mockery of Shadwell's ambitions versus his actual talents. Of his dominion may know and be known. So, a wish for unlimited power or reach that is comedic, considering Shadwell's perceived shortcomings, and greater than his father's be his throne, implies that Shadwell should surpass Dryden not only in ambition but also in recognition, which is rich with irony. Beyond love's kingdom, let him stretch his span. So, suggests that Shadwell should aspire to write beyond trivial matters, particularly love poetry, which implies a lack of ambition in his current work. He paused, and all the people cried, Amen. So, captures the crowd's enthusiastic agreement, which contrasts with the insincerity of their praise, mocking the idea of real talent. Then thus continued he, my son, advance, signals a continuation of the mock prophecy, establishing an ironic tone as he addresses Shadwell directly. Still in new impudence, new ignorance, critiques Shadwell's lack of self awareness and understanding, suggesting he is shameless in his mediocrity. Success let other teach, learn thou from me. Ironically saying that only through failure, Dryden's own pangs without birth, should Shadwell seek to learn, subtly mocking his aspirations. Pangs without birth and fruitless industries. So, a stark commentary on wasted efforts, implying that Shadwell's work lacks true creativity, resulting in barren output. So Dryden's Mac Flecknoe employs clever literary devices rich in irony and satire to critique his rival Shadwell, encapsulating the struggle for literary superiority in the Restoration period. The poem serves not just as a personal parody but also as a commentary on artistic merit and the nature of success in literature.